Chapter 1. Welcome to the Train. A cozy dorm room filled with college photos, scattered books, and a few snacks on the table. Concert posters hang on the walls, and trophies for participating in various competitions line the shelves. 2 single beds, made up with mismatched, colorful linens, occupy opposite corners. Next to them is a small bookshelf, filled with textbooks and a few odd trinkets, like a tiny globe and a framed photo of friends at a recent party. Jordan is lying on the left bed, engrossed in his book, and Alex leans back on his bed, looking at a photo from freshman year, and says, "Can you believe it's been 4 years? Sometimes it feels like just yesterday we were trying to figure out how to survive our first exams." Jordan looks up from his book, laughing. "I remember that. We were so stupid. I'll never forget our first party." Alex, smiling, replies, "Yeah, and we met those girls from the art department. What were their names?" Jordan, grinning, shrugs. "How would I remember? I was drunk. I can't have fun sober like you. And I was stressed out from studying." Alex, winking, says, "It was the first day of school. What are you talking about? What stress?" Jordan, rolling his eyes. "Oh, come on, don't be a nag." Alex, laughing, "Okay, I'll miss Aunt Sarah's pancakes from the diner on the corner." Jordan, smiling, "And the bonfire on the beach. We were just goofing around, talking about our future. I think we even made some ridiculous promise to move in together after graduating." Alex, giggling, "Yeah, we were so naive, but in a good way. It's nice to think about moments like these. They remind me that even though everything changes, we still have memories." Jordan, looking at his watch, "Of course, get on your train already or I'll start crying some more." "We'll meet again, I'm sure of it," Alex said, and started walking towards the train station. He passed a coffee shop on the right, where the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the aroma of baked goods. He then turned left at the second intersection. Continuing straight for 2 blocks, he noticed a park on the left, where children were playing and older couples were walking hand in hand. He crossed the street and saw the entrance to the station straight ahead. The building was large and made of red brick, with a clock tower visible from afar. The only thing that confused Alex was that the red brick was brighter than usual. He looked at the names of the stations first. "I think so," Alex thought. "Maybe the sun is brighter today." Alex boards the train, settles into his window seat, and looks around a car, watching other passengers pack their bags and find their seats. Suddenly, he hears footsteps approaching and looks up as someone sits down next to him. "Hey, is this seat taken?" someone asks. No," Alex replies, not taking his eyes off the window, as if his entire universe is there. "What a nice weather today." "Yes, it is nice, but I think the weather has become more unpredictable. It's hot in the summer and warm in the winter." When he turns to face him, Alex realizes that this is his friend, with whom he was chatting in the dorm just a few minutes ago about his college years. "Are you kidding me? Did you decide to come with me or what? He also tells me about the weather." Alex says with a slight grin. Wait, do I know you? Jordan squints. Are you drunk? Alex replied. Jordan, looking at Alex in surprise. I think I should move. Alex blinks in confusion. Is he kidding me? We just talked, and now he's pretending not to recognize me. Hey, where are you going? Alex shouts after me. Maybe this is a prank, Alex thinks, and reaches for his phone and starts calling Jordan. He doesn't answer. Well, sure, it would be weird if you answered now. A few seconds pass, and Alex's phone rings. Jordan appears on the screen, but he saw a stranger who sat down 2 rows to the right of Alex. He felt nervous. A voice in his head. What? How is he doing this? Alex thought about it. He knew he had to answer, but what if Jordan's voice was there? What then? He looked at Jordan, who sat down 2 rows away. Okay, let me answer that. Let's see what he came up with. Yeah, Jordan, Alex answered. Are you forgetting something? Jordan asked. Alex became wary, not understanding what was happening. He was silent, looking after the stranger, but he was nowhere to be found. He raised himself up and began to look for him with his eyes, but he was nowhere to be found. Then he asked the girl he was sitting next to. Excuse me, where is that guy who was next to you? Yeah, I was reading the newspaper, but I don't remember anyone sitting next to me. Maybe I just didn't notice. Jordan's voice was heard from Alex's phone. Alex, are you there? What's going on? Alex picked up the phone and said, I'll call you back. He went to look for the stranger. He saw a man and decided to ask, Did a guy with a short haircut in a black t-shirt pass by here? No, I haven't seen him. Where is he? He couldn't have been a dream, Alex thought. A couple of minutes later, the train started moving, and an ominous premonition hung in the air. The weather had suddenly worsened. The sky, just clear and blue, was quickly covered with dark, gloomy clouds that seemed to be trying to hide the light. It became darker outside, and soon a heavy rain began to pour down like from a bucket. Alex, pressing himself against the window, saw shadows flickering behind the gusts of rain, either trees or something else that was hiding in the darkness. Alex calmed down, came over, and sat down in his seat. The thought of what had happened did not leave him. Then he remembered that he promised to call Jordan back. Maybe he could explain something. And then the train suddenly entered a tunnel. A loud roar filled the train car, and suddenly everything was plunged into complete darkness. The connection was lost. It became completely dark. Only the bright screen of his phone was visible, illuminating his face with a pale light. The train had not emerged from the darkness for about 15 minutes. Alex became wary. His heart began to beat faster. What's going on? He thought, casting an anxious glance at the passengers around him. But he could not see anyone. Why are we traveling in this darkness for so long? The question tormented his mind, filling the room with an oppressive atmosphere. Every moment in this tunnel seemed like an eternity, and time and distance lost all meaning. Finally, after a long time of agonizing waiting, the connection appeared on the phone screen. The darkness still did not leave the train, and the darkness seemed alive, as if on its own. He quickly scrolled through the contacts, looking for Jordan, but he could not concentrate. Jordan looks up and asks, "Who is it?" A voice on the other end of the line broke the silence. "Why are you asking?" "It's Alex. It hasn't been an hour, and you've already deleted my number?" His voice sounded with a slight note of irritation mixed with concern. Alex felt the darkness around him thickening, and this added anxiety to his words. The same question was heard from the other end again, but now with a note of wariness. "Who is this? Why are you silent?" The voice sounded tense, as if Jordan was looking for even the slightest hint of what was going on. Alex, unable to hide his confusion, raised his voice. "Alex! I'm Alex!" Panic was brewing inside him, and he realized that something was wrong. "I don't know who you are and why you're calling from my dead friend's phone number, but this is not funny." His voice became cold as ice, and there was a clear threat in it. "Don't call here again." He abruptly hung up, leaving Alex completely confused. Alex turns to the window, and there is only darkness, like an endless sea of night. He raises his head, feeling slightly uneasy, and realizes that there is no one in the carriage except him. The walls of the carriage seem even more gloomy in this darkness. Suddenly, the door opens, and the conductor comes in. He looks confident, with a kind smile on his face. Alex, still puzzled, asks him, "Why is it so dark outside? You can't see anything. And where are all the people from the carriage?" The conductor, winking, replies, "Welcome to the train." The conductor looked away from Alex and headed to the next carriage. After some time, Alex stopped caring about the story with Jordan. In his thoughts, there was only the option that this was a friendly joke. He was alarmed by the conductor's answer and the situation itself, that there was no one in the car. He tried to change cars. He got up, went to the door, tried to open it. It was closed. He tried to see through the small window if there was anyone in the neighboring car, but it was too dark. He tried to shine a flashlight from his phone, but to no avail. He went to his seat, and there was a cup there. Where did it come from? There is definitely someone here, Alex thought. He looked through everything from top to bottom. No one. Alex sat down on the place where the cup was on the table. He picked it up. "Where are you from here?" Alex began to knock the mug on the table and look out the window, trying to see at least something. Alex sat like that for about an hour, when suddenly he saw the light of a flashlight in the neighboring car. He quickly ran to the window, started knocking and shouting, "Hey, who's there? Answer!" A man of about 25 years old in a blue jacket, a white shirt, worn jeans, and old cowboy boots approached the window. "New?" the man asked right away. "What do you mean?" "What are you talking about?" Alex asked. "How long have you been here?" "We're here, on the train. About 2 hours, I guess." "Has he approached you yet?" "Who is he?" "The conductor. Has he approached you?" Yes, he said welcome and left. When he approaches the second time, don't ask him any questions. Answer what he asks, and that's it. Otherwise, it will get worse. What are you talking about? What will he do? What if I don't answer him? Alex asked. It's better not to do that. Just answer the questions, and that's it. Trust me, I've been here for 2 years. I wouldn't advise anyone bad. The man began to distance himself. Where are you going? Alex began to knock on the window from the door of the carriage. Come back. The man no longer responded to Alex's shouts and knocks. After talking to the stranger from the neighboring car, Alex sat down in his seat, instantly turning red with anger. Less than 0.05. After sitting for a couple of minutes, he could not stand it, and filling with rage, began to smash the train car. He hit the seats with his fist, scattered magazines, and kicked suitcases, which fell to the floor with a dull thud. The rumble was heard throughout the car, and even the windows shook. All this rumble was heard by the same man from the neighboring car. His face, initially calm, now expressed bewilderment. "Hey, what are you doing?" the man asked, his voice sounding sharp, but as if he was already prepared for such behavior. "What business is it of yours?" Alex snapped. "You don't answer my questions. Why should I answer yours? If you're trying to get my attention so that I'll answer your questions, this isn't the best option," he said. His tone was calm. "You think too much of yourself?" Alex continued, looking at him with disdain. "As you say, you've been here for 2 years, and as far as I understand, you don't have answers to my questions." "Not to all of them, of course," the man answered, his voice becoming a little quieter, almost thoughtful. "But you'll find out everything yourself soon." A couple of seconds of silence passed, and the unknown man asked again, "So why did you decide to smash your carriage?" "I want to find the cameras," Alex blurted out, still shaking with rage. There was desperation in his voice. "This is some kind of show. They are definitely filming me. I will sue them for this." The man began to laugh loudly, his laughter echoing in the carriage. "You are suing them? Well then, good luck to you," he said mockingly, and his eyes sparkled with mirth. "What's so funny?" Alex asked, puzzled. "Give this place some time, and soon you will laugh at your own words." The man looked at him with a smile. His confidence was almost infectious. "Oh, that's it. Get out of here. You are nothing but stress and no use," Alex said, feeling his heart rate calm down, but anger was still boiling inside. Whatever you say," the man said, moving away into his carriage, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts. Having smashed half the carriage, Alex still found nothing. No cameras, no signs, no clues. He picked up his phone to see how long he had been there and if there was a connection. The phone screen glowed in the semi-darkness of the carriage, 2305 and 100% charge. "What do you mean 100% charge? I've been here for 10 hours already," he thought, looking at the screen in bewilderment. With each new fact, reality became more and more confusing. Since the day was very long, Alex, without understanding why, began to fall asleep. The monotonous hum of the train was heard around him, calming him down, carrying him away into a world of half-dreams. His head was still spinning with scraps of conversations, vivid images, and the stranger's laughter, which sounded like an echo. Alex remembered how the man laughed as if he knew something important, and he himself, unlike him, felt lost and alone. Thoughts about what was happening around him and how he ended up on this strange train continued to torment him. After sleeping for a couple of hours, Alex woke up and realized that he was still on this train. Unfortunately, it was not a dream. As soon as he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the same mug, this time filled with tea, which was emitting warm steam. In front of him stood the silhouette of a man. It was the same conductor with whom it all began. Finally, I will find out the answers to my questions, he thought, hoping that this conversation would bring him at least some clarity. "Well, hello, Alex," the conductor said, his voice sounding calm and confident. "Who are you?" Alex asked angrily, his voice trembling with rage and discontent. He felt his anger building up inside, as if it was ready to explode at any moment. "Me? The conductor of this train?" He looked at Alex with a slight smile. "Why do you think you're here?" "That's what I wanted to know," Alex answered sharply, his phrase reminiscent of a scream that was heard in a confined space. The conductor folded his arms over his chest and narrowed his eyes, as if trying to see something more than just anger in Alex. "Where do you think you are?" he asked, as if it were an obvious truth. "On the train, but it's going somewhere else," Alex said, feeling his irritation growing. He couldn't understand why everyone around him was acting so strangely. The conductor smiled at Alex's answer, and this made him even more displeased. "Okay, it's my turn to answer your question," the conductor said, leaning closer, as if about to share a secret. "Where are we going?" Alex asked, his voice full of expectation. "This train has no destination," the conductor said, his tone calm, as if he were talking about something completely ordinary. "We're just going in circles? What's the point?" Alex exclaimed in surprise, frustration washing over him. He felt his world crumbling around him, and this train had become a symbol of his being stuck. "Every prisoner has their own meaning and their own reason for being here," the conductor replied, his voice deep and thoughtful. He looked straight into Alex's eyes, and understanding was written in his gaze. "Everyone who?" Alex asked furiously, his voice breaking into a shout. He felt his anger growing into something more, fear, horror at the realization of who he was here. The conductor tilted his head as if thinking about how to explain. "Everyone who ended up here has their own reasons. Maybe you're looking for answers, maybe you're just running away from something, but you're not the only one asking yourself these questions." Alex felt confusion brewing inside him. The conductor's words resonated in his mind. He began to realize that this train was more than just transportation. It was more than he could have imagined. Questions about who he was and why he was here were tearing him apart from the inside. "What should I do?" he said, not so confidently. "How can I get out of here?" The conductor only smiled in response, and a spark of mystery flashed in his eyes. At that moment, Alex felt his heart beat faster, and he realized that this conversation had only begun to open the doors to his new reality. "I'll come tomorrow," the conductor said in a confident voice. "What, tomorrow?" Alex exclaimed angrily. "I'll only have more questions. I can't wait so long. I want to leave here. You have no right to keep me here. I haven't broken anything." The conductor looked at him silently, and there was not a drop of regret in his eyes. He simply turned and walked out of the carriage, leaving Alex alone with his anger and confusion. Alex, overcome with anger, grabbed the mug of cold tea which had cooled in his hands. He felt the anger filling him, and without thinking, he threw it after the conductor. The mug hit the door, shattering into small pieces. His words, full of pain and anger, spread throughout the carriage, but only silence answered him. Alex felt his breathing quicken and his heart pounding in his chest. He repeated the conductor's words over and over in his head. Every prisoner has his own meaning. But he did not feel like a prisoner. He was a victim, and this feeling of rage only increased his desire to get out. He began to walk aimlessly around the carriage, unable to sit still. Every step echoed in his head like a hammer hitting an anvil. Everything around him remained the same chairs, the same walls, and the same endless dark corridor outside the window. He went to the window and pressed his forehead to it, trying to make out something in the endless expanse of the night. There was darkness behind the glass, as if the world outside the carriage had been swallowed up by an abyss. Alex clenched his fists, feeling a wave of despair growing inside him. And although at that moment it seemed to him that there was no way out, he knew that he had to continue looking for answers, for himself and for his freedom. Alex was perplexed as to what to do next. Remembering his neighbor, he began to look for him in the neighboring carriage. Carefully peering into each bench, he did not find a single trace. Less than 0.05. In the distance, he noticed that one of the windows was open. Less than 0.05. He opened his phone and began writing down the questions he was going to ask the conductor the next day. Before he could finish, he suddenly heard a noise from his neighbor's carriage. Running up to the carriage, he saw not a familiar man, but an old man of about 80 years old, with deep wrinkles and a tired look. Alex knocked on the window. The old man came closer and asked in bewilderment, "What do you want? Where is the guy who was here yesterday? Where did he disappear to?" Alex asked, feeling his voice trembling with excitement. "New guy, or what?" Grandpa squinted, as if trying to get a better look at Alex. "Yes, I've been here for 2 days," Alex answered, trying to stay calm. "You won't see him again," Grandpa said with sadness in his voice. "And anyway, everyone you see here you'll see for the first and last time, except for the guide Everyone has their own. No one else? Are there a lot of people here? Alex asked anxiously, feeling his heart pounding. I didn't count them, the grandfather answered, looking away. But in 20 years, I've never repeated myself. They change every day. Every day a new neighbor. Every day you learn a new story. 20 years? Alex asked, his voice trembling with surprise. 20, the grandfather said, his voice quieting on the last words, and sadness reflected in his eyes. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He opened his mouth to ask another question, but the grandfather had already turned away, as if the conversation was over. Wait, what do you mean, every day a new neighbor? Is this some kind of joke? Alex couldn't believe what he heard. The grandfather grinned, but there was no joy in his eyes. If you don't believe me, you'll soon understand. I didn't believe it at first either. I asked, tried to figure it out. But it's different here. He took a deep breath. Just remember one thing. Don't get attached. Everyone leaves, without exception. Alex looked at the carriage. Yesterday there was another man here, and today this old man who claims to have been here for 20 years. Did that mean that the man he met yesterday had disappeared? But where? How? But why? What happens to them? Where do they go? He asked, unable to contain his anxiety. The grandfather shook his head. Nobody knows. You fall asleep with one person in the next compartment, and in the morning it's already another. Just get used to it. Alex clenched his fists. This was ridiculous. This was impossible. And yet he felt a dull anxiety brewing inside him. I'm not going to stay here for 20 years, he muttered, peering into the old man's face. The old man chuckled. That's what I said, too. Alex froze. What is this place? It's just a train, right? It's not just a train, kid. The old man sighed wearily. It's a path. Each person has their own. What have you been doing here for 20 years? Alex finally asked, feeling fear squeeze his chest. The old man looked at him wearily, as if he'd heard this question 100 times. Waiting, he answered shortly. What? Alex frowned. The old man didn't answer. His gaze went into the void, as if he'd long since resigned himself to all this. Alex took a deep breath, trying to process what he'd heard. His thoughts were all jumbled up. He didn't want to believe it, but what if the old man was right? What if he really was stuck here? He closed his eyes and tried to gather his thoughts. No, that was impossible. This was just some weird dream or a prank. There had to be a way out. Okay, he muttered under his breath. If there is no way out, then we need to find one. He turned sharply back to the old man. Well, in 20 years you should have found some kind of loophole here, Alex said with despair in his voice. Help me understand what is happening here. The grandfather slowly raised his tired eyes to him. It seemed that he was thinking for a long time whether to answer. There were moments, he finally said, when it seemed to me that the exit was near, that I had almost found the answer. But each time something changed. Each time I had to start over, as if the train itself does not let me get out. Alex frowned. Suddenly, the lights in the car flickered, the train shuddered as if sighing, and for a moment it seemed to Alex that the corridor became longer than before. The dim light cast strange, distorted shadows on the walls, and among them a silhouette flashed. Someone's dark figure standing at the far end of the carriage. Alex froze. The figure did not move, but he felt its gaze. Dark spots, like shadows, began to flow from the ceiling, gathering in the corners of the compartment, writhing as if alive. Grandfather also noticed this and exhaled heavily. "It has begun," he muttered. Alex did not have time to ask what exactly, because the figure took a step forward. The figure approached, and before Alex had time to scream, it dissolved into thin air. His body jerked, his head spun, his consciousness fell into darkness. When Alex came to, he found himself sitting on the cold ground. He raised his head sharply and saw a familiar picture in front of him. It was his house, but it was not inside, but across the road, under the old oak tree that always grew in front of his house. The sound of a motor was heard in the distance. Alex turned his head and saw a taxi approaching. The car stopped right in front of his house, and out came himself. Alex froze, watching as his double approached the door and rang the bell. The door opened, and his father appeared on the threshold. He smiled, patted Alex on the shoulder, then his mother ran out, hugged him, then his sister. Everything looked completely normal. But Alex, standing under the tree, could not understand who was this person. He was an exact copy of himself. But why did his parents not notice the difference? Why did they not see that in front of them was not the real Alex? Icy horror froze his body. He tried to scream, but no sound followed. His vision immediately darkened, and the world around him turned into something blurry and distant. At first, he felt a strange dizziness, and he found himself in some kind of abyssal space. Every nerve in his body constricted, and it was as if his body had lost all sense of the ground beneath his feet. He had caught hold of some invisible edge of reality and was instantly pulled out of this nightmare as if he had been pulled into an abyss. Day 3, 9:32 a.m. He opens his eyes, and it's the train again. Grandpa is no longer in the next car. Alex feels the car swaying slightly and hears the muffled clatter of the wheels. The dim light barely penetrates through the dusty windows, casting ominous shadows on the walls of the compartment. An unusual silence reigns around, broken only by the creaking of old panels. A sudden clang breaks the silence, and footsteps are heard in the corridor. Heavy, uncertain, they are approaching, but reaching your compartment, they fall silent. A shadow is visible behind the door, but when Alex decides to look out, there is no one there. Alex feels the train slowing down. A quiet, barely audible whisper is heard in the car, which seems to call Alex by name. At that moment, Alex notices that he sees something strange behind one of the windows, a figure running across the field towards the train, but then it disappears as suddenly as it appeared. Alex started running towards the end of the carriage, stopped in front of the door to the next carriage. For a moment, Alex thought he saw a face flashing behind the glass of the door, and Alex felt his heart skip a beat. Feeling growing anxiety, he tried to open the door to the next carriage, but it wouldn't budge. He pulled the handle, but it wouldn't budge, as if it was jammed. In a panic, Alex looked around and noticed that fog was thickening behind the windows. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around, and for a moment it seemed to him that he saw a familiar figure ahead in the dim light. "Hey, who's there?" he shouted, but there was only silence in response. The footsteps faded away, and all that was left was the sound of his own breathing and the pounding of his heart. He walked to the other end of the car. As he got closer, he realized that something was wrong. He reached the end of the car, where the door to the next car should have been, but instead he came across a blank wall. Alex turned around and saw in the semi-darkness an unfamiliar man sitting at his table. The man was dressed in an old-fashioned suit, and something sinister but familiar emanated from him. The stranger looked at Alex calmly, smiling slightly. His eyes seemed bottomless, and they reflected all the horror of what was happening. On the table in front of him lay an old book that Alex had not noticed before. "You are looking for a way out, aren't you?" the stranger asked, his voice sounding quiet but confident. Alex did not know what to answer, but nodded, realizing that this man might know how to get out of this trap. "Your journey begins here," he said, pointing to the book. Alex walked closer and saw that the pages of the book were filled with strange symbols and maps, leading somewhere beyond his understanding. "This is not just a train," the stranger continued. "You must find your place in it." Alex felt a chill run down his spine, but the knowledge that he was not alone gave him strength. He realized that he must trust this strange guide and solve the mystery that would lead him home. Alex, noticing the book on the table, carefully opened it. The pages were written down events from his life, starting from childhood and ending with very recent days. He turned the pages, feeling a chill run down his spine. Every event was described with frightening accuracy, including moments that he had long tried to forget or hide even from himself. Soon he came across a page. All the pages were printed in black on white paper, but this one was printed in reverse, in black letters. "What is this book, and what are these symbols?" Alex asked. "You tell me," the stranger replied with a mocking tone in his voice. Suddenly, as if the night itself began to shake, there was a roar that made the ground beneath his feet tremble. The sound was so loud and sharp that it seemed as if the whole world would soon collapse. It was like a train colliding with something metallic, shaking the air from the powerful force of the impact. Alex did not have time to understand anything. His body seemed to succumb to this vibration itself, and losing his balance, he fell to the ground. The collision was so sudden that even his breathing changed into a convulsive rhythm. When he opened his eyes, the ground in front of him was covered in dust and debris. There was no trace of that strange stranger around, no noise, only silence that swallowed everything around. Alex carefully turned a page, continuing to look at the strange symbols in the book. They were strangely familiar, but at the same time completely incomprehensible, as if they did not exist in the language he knew. He tried to concentrate, but the longer he looked, the more his mind sank into some kind of vague state, as if the book itself was trying to absorb him. Suddenly, the door creaked, and a stranger entered the room. His figure was tall, dressed in a long black cloak that fluttered like a shadow and almost touched the floor. His face was hidden by a hood, and from under it only two bright scarlet dots sparkled, eyes like burning coals. He stood on the threshold, seeming somehow unnatural, as if the very air around him was heavy and tense. "Choose a page," his voice said. It sounded like a whisper, but there was something unimaginably powerful in it that made Alex feel his heart squeeze with anxiety. Alex, dumbfounded and not understanding what was happening, could barely say, "What? Which page?" His voice sounded muffled. He was clearly confused. He had just been looking through strange symbols that seemed like complete nonsense. And now he was overcome by the feeling that this man could be some kind of embodiment of this chaos. "But nothing here makes sense," Alex answered, holding back his growing irritation, starting to get nervous. He could not understand what was happening, and even more, why this strange man was demanding a choice from him. "And if I choose the wrong page, what then?" Alex asked anxiously, although inside his voice sounded more and more tense. He already felt that this choice was not easy, and it could cost something important, something much more serious than just a sheet of paper in a book. The stranger stood silently and only slightly raised a corner of his mouth in a sinister grin, which did not hide the slightest sympathy. Alex looked into his eyes, but did not see a drop of empathy, only emptiness. Desperately trying to concentrate, Alex said, "Okay, let it be number 5. His hands began to tremble from the unknown, and his heart was pulsating so hard that it seemed like it was about to burst out of his chest. Then the figure of the stranger suddenly approached, and at the same moment Alex felt how the world around him began to disappear. The walls dissolved, and the light dimmed. He took a step back, but then something pulled him forward, towards this figure like an invisible force. He felt his mind gradually losing its grip, and his body seemed to lose weight, absorbed by some unknown empty space. Before he had time to understand or say anything, the world went completely black, and his consciousness left. 5-Story 1. Alex woke up in the apartment, and the first thing he felt was a sharp pain in his head, as if someone had hit him on the skull with a hammer. He squinted, trying to put his thoughts in order, but everything around him seemed somehow cloudy and blurry. It was an ordinary average apartment, no different from hundreds of others. Neutral walls, inexpensive furniture, a floor covered with light linoleum. Nothing had changed outside the window. The world was the same as always. He sighed, trying to cope with the headache, and got out of bed. He looked around. There was a laptop on the table, black, old, but it seemed to be working. His strange lack of a password was puzzling, but at the moment, Alex didn't pay much attention to it. His attention was more drawn to the photo on the wall, a scene captured in a frame, but he couldn't remember when or where it was taken. A slight hint of smiling faces. Strange. He attributed it to his fatigue, not wanting to think. A quiet sound from behind the door caught his attention. He paused and listened. The sound of footsteps. Someone was at his door. He wasn't in a hurry, just walked up as if he knew they would be there. He looked through the peephole and saw the courier, who had left the package at the threshold and was already disappearing. Alex opened the door, took the box, and went back inside. He opened the package with curiosity. Inside was a flash drive, which immediately caught his attention. Alex remembered that there was a laptop on the table, and despite his headache, he decided to turn it on. The screen lit up, and on it was a photo of some guy with a girl. Alex quickly glanced at the screen, but did not pay attention to it. He was busy with something else. The flash drive. What was on it? He inserted the flash drive into the port and saw several files, but they were all password protected. Alex thought about it again. He stood up and walked to the mirror next to the bed. Looking at his reflection, he suddenly realized it was him, the guy in the photo. He froze, trying to comprehend what was happening. Something didn't add up. Where was the girl? Yes, who was that? Alex asked, feeling his voice waver. Where are you? We're currently presenting a new project to investors. Why aren't you here? An impatient voice rang out. Do you know that all your promises are worthless? You've disappeared as always. Alex felt his head spin. Some fragments of memories flashed in his head, as if in a dark corridor. He remembered something about a startup, about a friend with whom he had been preparing the project for 6 months. He was sure that this project was his life. I'll be right there, he said, trying to collect his thoughts. You don't have to rush, the other man replied, his voice becoming sharp. I've already done everything. You're my friend, but I'm tired of doing the talking for both of you. We need to meet and talk. After hanging up, Alex slowly began to remember the details of his life. He remembered who he was, where he was born, what school he went to. His parents' faces floated before his eyes. The girl from the photo flashed in his memory, her warm smile, but the thoughts of what had happened on the train and before it remained empty, as if that person from the train had never existed. Now he felt like a completely new person, but with huge gaps in his memory. His gaze fell on the flash drive lying on the bedside table. Maybe there is something important there that will help me remember more details about this project, he thought. But the password? Alex resolutely stood up, stretched, and decided to get some fresh air. Maybe fresh air will help me gather my thoughts together, flashed through his mind. He pulled on a dark gray tracksuit, neatly folded on a chair next to the bed, put on comfortable sneakers, and went outside. The city was alive, noisy, bustling. The tall glass buildings reflected the streetlights, and the smells of coffee shops and street food mingled in the air. After walking a few blocks, Alex noticed a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk near an old newspaper stand. The man was wrapped in a shabby brown raincoat. His gray beard was tangled, and his eyes were tired. Alex instinctively took a couple of coins out of his pocket and tossed them to the old man. "Thank you, man," the homeless man said hoarsely. "Nobody gives money for free these days. People are ready to eat each other for an extra $2. I just can't stand it when change is dangling in my pockets, Alex answered dryly. So you don't have to thank me. Consider that you helped me, too. You got rid of the extra burden. The old man chuckled, but said nothing. Alex walked on, lost in his thoughts. He crossed several busy streets, went around a park with sparse trees where couples sat on benches, and finally came to the beach. It was quieter here, only the sound of the surf and the occasional footsteps of passers-by disturbed the peace. He sat down on an old wooden bench, covered in traces of time and salty wind, and stared into the sea. The waves lazily ran up to the shore, reflecting the light of the lanterns. Alex thought about the upcoming conversation with his friend. What if he decided to get rid of him? After all, they had been working on the project together from the very beginning. He couldn't just give away everything they had created for so many years. He needed to prove that without him, this project would perish. Suddenly, someone sat down next to him. Alex turned his head and was surprised to see the same homeless man. The old man was swaying back and forth, looking towards the horizon. "It's hard to live in today's world," he said, not looking at Alex. "Everyone is chasing wealth, ready to betray each other for money." "Yeah. For example, my childhood friend, it seems, decided to get rid of me in order to remain alone in the project," Alex answered thoughtfully. "He thinks that I am not worthy of being his partner." "Did he tell you so?" "No, but he made it clear that he was tired of doing everything alone, although we were together from the very beginning." The old man chuckled, scratched his beard, and said, "And what are you going to do?" "I will prove that I am needed in this project, and he can't cope without me. Besides, it was my idea from the very beginning. We have been friends for a long time. Everything has a price, even friendship," the homeless man said quietly. Alex frowned and looked at him. "What do you even know about price? You don't even have enough for food. How many friends do you have? How much are you willing to sell them for?" The old man chuckled slightly, but there was something cold and frightening in his gaze. "You can't even imagine the price I paid for my life," he said. Alex turned around sharply, but there was no one next to him. The homeless man had disappeared, as if he had never been there. Only the wind rushed along the shore, raising the sand and carrying it away into the night. The waves gently hit the shore, and somewhere in the distance a seagull cried out, breaking the ominous silence. Alex shivered and shoved his hands into the pockets of his jacket. "Who is he? And where did he disappear to so quickly?" he thought, quickening his pace. The fresh air didn't help. The anxiety only grew. He decided to go home, hoping that the warm walls of his apartment would dispel the obsessive thoughts. On the way, he took out his phone and dialed the number of his friend and project partner. "Listen, let's meet. I think we have something to discuss," Alex said, excitement clearly in his voice. "Yeah, okay. I'll come to your house now. You're home, right?" Nick responded. "That's where I'm heading. I'll be there in about 15 minutes. "Okay. See you there." Alex walked along the deserted streets. The frozen city seemed to be weighing on him. He thought about how to apologize for the ruined presentation, how to convince Nick that they needed to continue working together. The project was his brainchild, his dream, and he wasn't going to give up. Reaching the apartment, he flicked the switch. The dim light of the lamp filled the room. Everything here seemed painfully familiar to him. Drawings and sketches scattered on the table, a laptop, an unwashed mug with a dried coffee stain. His gaze fell again on the flash drive lying next to the keyboard. He tried to remember the password, but his head was empty, as if someone had erased the necessary numbers and letters from his memory. Alex rubbed his face with his hands in irritation. There was a knock on the door. Alex flinched in surprise. He went up to it and opened it. Nick was standing on the threshold. His friend's eyes were tired. He was clutching a phone in his hand. Nick silently entered, sat down on the nearest chair, and sighed heavily. "I'll start straight to the point. They don't want to invest in our project. They want to buy everything, absolutely all the programs, all the data, everything we have," he said, avoiding Alex's gaze. Alex felt his insides clench. "I don't want to sell. This project will bring in millions in the near future. I'm sure of it." "I'm sure of it too, but now we need money. We won't be able to pull this project off without it." Nick spoke calmly, but there was a hint of nervousness in his voice. "We'll find other investors. We just need time," Alex stubbornly objected. "Alex, we're out of time. I'm in debt on my credit cards. I can't take it anymore. We'll have to sell the project." "No, I won't sell it. We have to come up with something." Alex clenched his fists, trying to keep his emotions under control. "You've been talking nonsense lately," Nick flared up. "You tell me what a great project this is, how it will help people, but you do nothing, absolutely nothing." "If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have started this project at all," Alex responded sharply, his voice shaking with anger. Nick narrowed his eyes, his face distorted with irritation. "Yeah, you're a fucking genius," he said with hatred, and abruptly left, slamming the door. Alex was left alone. A tense silence hung in the room. Only the clock on the wall steadily ticked away the seconds. Rage was boiling in his chest. He nervously ran his hands through his hair, opened the refrigerator, grabbed a bottle of beer, pulled the lid out with force, and greedily took a few sips. The bitter liquid spilled down his throat, but did not bring relief. He collapsed into a chair, closed his eyes, but his thoughts did not give him rest. The project was his life. Nick simply did not understand. Sell? Never. After a while, fatigue took over, and Alex sank into a restless, anxious sleep, where that same homeless man with an empty look flickered among the shadows. The next morning began with Alex's terrible hangover. His head was splitting, his mouth was dry, and his stomach was clearly protesting against yesterday's libations. He sighed heavily, rose from the couch, and looked around. The room was in disarray. Empty bottles, pizza scraps, and scattered papers. The smell of stale alcohol was mixed with something else unpleasant. "Oh, God, how it smells in here. I should clean up or at least take out the trash," Alex thought, wincing. He found a trash bag, somehow collected the bottles and packaging in it, and staggering, headed for the exit. As he walked down the stairs to the first floor, he suddenly noticed a familiar figure curled up right at the entrance. The man was lying right on the floor, covered with a dirty old raincoat. Alex frowned and, coming closer, carefully touched him on the shoulder. The homeless man stirred, muttered something, and opened his dull eyes. "Are you following me or what?" Alex asked, shaking his head. The homeless man seemed to smirk. "Maybe I'm your guardian angel," he croaked. "You're not doing well at this, to be honest." Alex leaned against the wall. "Nick and I had a fight yesterday. The look in his eyes when I said I didn't want to sell the project made me seriously think he'd punch me or worse. And you were nowhere to be found. What kind of guardian angel are you?" The homeless man rubbed his temples as if collecting his thoughts. "Nick, who is that?" he muttered incoherently. Alex sighed and shook his head. "Okay, guardian angel. Get out of here before some neighbor kicks you out. I'm still a nice guy, but there's this one. This is definitely not going to be easy." Okay, I'm leaving now." The homeless man rose with difficulty, swayed, and slowly wandered away, dissolving into the morning mist. Alex watched him go, thoughtfully scratching the back of his head. "There's been a lot of this homeless man in my life lately. I wish I could make friends with him again. I hope I never see him again," flashed through his mind. He took the trash to the container, returned home, and plopped down in a chair, turning on his laptop. The photo appeared on the screen again. He and his girlfriend smiling happily against the backdrop of the evening city. Alex ran his hand over his face, thinking maybe she could give him some advice. He found her number and dialed. After a few beeps, her warm, slightly sleepy voice came through the receiver. "Yes, my love?" "Hello, my love. How are you?" Alex asked, trying to hide the tiredness in his voice. "I'm fine. What's wrong with your voice? It's kind of strange. Did something happen?" the girl asked worriedly. "Just like that. Nick wants to sell our project to some corporation. He says he needs money, and without investment we won't last long. I'm wondering what to do." "You know better," she said softly. "It was your idea from the start. He won't be able to do it without you?" "No, of course not. And we've been friends for too long. He wouldn't do that." "Then you have nothing to fear. The last word is yours." Alex nodded, not even realizing that she couldn't see. "Thank you. I'll think about it. I'm waiting for you at home." "Love. See you soon," the girl answered and hung up. Alex leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Nick's words, doubts, questions were spinning in his head. He knew that he had to make a decision quickly, but what kind? It was already getting dark, about 6 o'clock in the evening. Alex decided to go for a walk. After talking with his girlfriend, he became more confident that the project could not be sold. However, there was still a small chance that he would agree to the deal. He approached the pier, looked at the sea, at the seagulls circling in the air, looking for prey. In the distance, he noticed the silhouette of that same homeless man. No, well, this is definitely my guardian angel, flashed through his mind. This time, Alex decided to approach him on a friendly note. As he approached, he noticed that the homeless man was watching one of the families walking nearby. A man of about 40, his wife, who looked 10 years younger than him, and their little daughter, no older than 10 years old. Alex came closer and asked, "Do you want a family like that too? For you to be someone's father, someone's husband?" The homeless man didn't answer, but continued to watch the family. "Look, if you keep staring like that, they might call the police. They'll take you away," Alex said with a grin. "No, they won't," the homeless man answered calmly. "How do you know?" Alex asked in surprise. "Do you think they're happy?" the homeless man asked unexpectedly. "Well, they look pretty happy," Alex answered, shrugging his shoulders. "Do you think he's a good father?" the homeless man asked again, nodding towards the man. "I don't know. They all seem to be dressed, wearing shoes, walking around. They look happy," Alex answered after a short thought. "Is he better than yours?" Alex fell silent. The question caught him off guard. "Than mine. That's for sure. The man clearly loves them. You can tell by the way he talks to them, how tenderly he hugs his wife, how he bounces his daughter in his arms. And mine drank every day and didn't give a damn about us." "That's good. It's nice to see a happy family," the homeless man said thoughtfully. "By the way, what about your project?" "Nothing good," Alex sighed. "I think I'll keep it for myself. I don't want to sell the work of my life. I'll find the money, and I'll try to be friends with Nick." At that moment, the phone rang. "Alex, hi. Let's meet up, talk again. I got a little hasty." Nick's voice rang out. "Yeah, sure. Let's do it in a couple of days. Mary will be home by then." "Okay." Alex returned to the conversation with the homeless man, not taking his eyes off him. "What was your father like? Do you think he was better than this man?" he asked, nodding towards the family man who was sitting at a table with a woman and a girl. The homeless man chuckled, but a shadow of sadness flickered in his eyes. "My father was a drunk," he said quietly, "but he was better than that." Alex frowned. "So you know them?" His voice became wary. Instead of answering, the homeless man slowly handed him something. Alex, not hiding his surprise, took the object in his hands. It was a worn leather wallet. He opened it and saw a small photograph inside. It depicted the same woman and girl who were now walking with the man. Alex felt his throat go dry. "Where did you get this wallet?" he asked, trying to remain calm. "This is mine," the homeless man answered calmly. Alex blinked, realizing the meaning of what was said. "You mean this man, he lives with your wife and daughter?" There was shock in his voice. The homeless man looked away. His shoulders slumped, and he spoke, looking off to the side. We were happy. He began with quiet sadness. We had a house, small but warm. My wife, my daughter, they were everything to me. We weren't living in luxury, but we had love, we had a family, and everything was going well until my daughter got sick. Alex clenched his fists. He already guessed what would happen next, but he didn't interrupt. We urgently needed money for the operation, the homeless man continued, closing his eyes as if he was afraid to relive that moment. We didn't have that kind of money. Then he offered me a deal. The bastard said he would pay for the operation if I... He took a shaky breath. If I cheated on my wife, I'll make sure she catches me, so she won't have any doubts. Alex clenched his teeth. He couldn't believe that someone was capable of such a thing. "And you agreed?" he asked quietly. "What would you have done? I knew I would lose everything. I knew she would hate me. But I couldn't let my daughter die. So I did it. She found out, filed for divorce, sued me for the house, the car, everything. And I didn't even fight. Because if I had made a different choice, I would never have forgiven myself." Alex hung his head. He didn't know what to say. He felt that words were powerless here. "I don't know. It's difficult, of course," he muttered. "But I probably would have done the same." The homeless man smiled bitterly. Everyone likes to say that money is not the most important thing. They say this until they need a large sum to save the one they love. If I had money, then, his voice trembled, I would be with them, with my family. And now, who needs me? Without a job, without a roof over my head. I even smell like garbage. They definitely don't need me like that. Alex frowned. Okay, she took the house and the car, but the job? Why can't you get a job again? He asked, clearly confused. The homeless man sighed heavily. He fired me, and not only that. I don't know what he did, but now no one will hire me. Wherever I go, they refuse me. I've become an outcast. Alex felt anger boiling inside him. I'll go over and tell her everything. This can't just be left like this, he said heatedly, already preparing to get up. But the homeless man grabbed his arm and stopped him. No need, he whispered. They're happy. Let them live with that creature as long as they don't know the truth. He's a hero to them. He saved our daughter. And if they find out, who knows how it will all turn out. He looked away and then suddenly snatched his wallet from Alex, rummaged through it, and pulled out a couple of coins. He handed them to Alex. What is this? He asked, looking at two old, slightly tattered dollars. You need investments in the project. I don't have any more, the homeless man said with a slight smile. Alex laughed. Thank you. The homeless man slowly began to walk away. Alex watched him go, and for some reason this time he was sure that he would never see him again. Goodbye, he said quietly. After returning home, Alex thought for a long time about this strange conversation and how life can unfold in one moment. A couple of days passed. It was early morning, not even 6 o'clock, when the sharp smell of freshly baked pastries and invigorating coffee filled the air. Alex sighed, still not opening his eyes, but immediately realized this was his girlfriend. She came, and he didn't even hear her enter the apartment. Her warm hands fell on his shoulders. She gently hugged him from behind. Her breath caressed his neck, and she whispered, "Get up. I made breakfast." He smiled, stretched, and followed her into the kitchen. The table was already set, warm, still crispy croissants, thick aromatic jam, fresh butter, and 2 glasses of steaming coffee. She poured him a cup, and then, sitting down next to him, began to tell him about how she spent the morning. They had breakfast, slowly talking about everyday matters. It was slowly getting light outside, and life was beginning to happen on the street. After eating, they decided to take a walk in the park. The fresh morning air was invigorating, and the city was just beginning to wake up. Alex enjoyed the moment. A slight frost nipped at his skin. Leaves rustled under his feet, and his girlfriend's warm palm lay comfortably in his. During the walk, they talked about everything, about classes at the university, about the future, dreams and plans. Alex told the girl about a homeless man he noticed a few days ago. He was watching some family standing in the shadow of a house like a ghost. His clothes were worn, but his eyes were alive and filled with something that Alex couldn't understand. I feel sorry for him, but, Alex thought, peering into the trees. Why doesn't he do anything? Why does he just stand there and watch? You can try to change your life, right? She listened silently, only nodding occasionally, then quietly answered, "Everyone has their own story, Alex. You can't know what happened to him." Alex squeezed her hand tighter and suddenly added quietly but confidently, "I will work on the project as long as it takes so that you don't need anything. I want us to have a future so that we can build a family." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with happiness. At that moment, it seemed to him that he was holding in his hands everything he needed in this life. But by evening, Alex had an important meeting. He had arranged to meet Nick, and deep down he hoped that he would understand him and would no longer insist on selling their joint project. When evening came, there was a knock on the door. Alex opened it. Nick was standing in front of him, in a good mood, with a couple of bottles of beer in his hands. "Hi." Nick entered the room and immediately sat down on the sofa. "I hope you have something to go with the beer." They laughed and started talking. After a couple of sips, Nick suddenly became serious and said, "Look, Alex, I'm sorry for wanting to sell the project. I understand that it is important to both of us. I changed my mind." Alex felt relief wash over him. He had been waiting for these words for a long time. "Thank you, Nick. I didn't want to sacrifice our friendship for some money. This project is our life." "It's okay." Nick nodded. "We'll handle it. I'm sure everything will be fine." They continued drinking beer, talking, reminiscing about the past. The room had a cozy, almost nostalgic atmosphere. The soft light of the table lamp created a warm twilight. Snow was lazily falling outside the window, and quiet music from the speakers complemented the evening. Laughter and light bickering mixed with the rustle of opening bottles and the occasional clinking of glass. But suddenly, Alex felt his head spinning. Everything was swimming before his eyes. Sounds began to come muffled, as if through cotton wool. His temples began to pound, his pulse quickened, and his body became cottony and unyielding. He tried to focus his gaze on his friend's face, but everything was blurry, as if in a fog. His fingers weakly clenched around a bottle, but it easily slipped out of his hands and fell with a dull thud onto the carpet. Alex wanted to say something, but his lips did not obey. His tongue seemed to be stuck to the roof of his mouth. Dark spots danced before his eyes, and losing his balance, he collapsed onto the bed, feeling his consciousness slowly slipping away into a sticky, viscous darkness. Alex woke up, and a sharp pain pierced his head, as if someone was hammering nails directly into his temples. There was a buzzing in his ears, his thoughts were confused, and his body felt heavy, as if filled with lead. He inhaled with difficulty, feeling the mustiness in the air, the smell of dampness and something metallic. As soon as he opened his eyes, an icy fear pierced him to the very core. He froze, not believing his eyes. It was dark all around. The black walls seemed damp, cracked in places, as if no one had looked after them for a long time. The windows were completely boarded up with old boards, through which a weak daylight barely penetrated. Darkness swirled in the corners, and something seemed to be moving in it. In front of him, on an old, worn wooden table, stood an open laptop, and next to it, of course, was that very flash drive. Alex recognized it immediately, and then Alex felt someone's gaze on him. He slowly raised his head and met the motionless, heavy gaze of the person opposite. It was the conductor, a tall, thin man in worn, dark clothes with a pale, almost deathly face. His eyes were wide open and did not blink. He simply looked straight at Alex, as if studying him, waiting. Only now Alex realized that there was a smooth, rhythmic knock of wheels around him. A train. They were in a train. That very carriage. His carriage. He tensed up and turned sharply to the conductor, not hiding his aggression. "What kind of laptop is this?" His voice sounded sharp, but a little hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken for a long time. "How many questions do you ask?" he answered with special calm, as if each word flowed out in the measured silence of the carriage. Alex clenched his fists, feeling irritation growing inside him. "Answer at least one. Otherwise, why are we even talking?" He paused, peering into the conductor's indifferent face. Why did I end up in another person's body? A barely noticeable smirk flickered in the corner of the conductor's lips. "You chose this page yourself. That's why you ended up there. If you had chosen another one, you would have been a different person, or maybe not a person at all." His voice was even almost hypnotic. Alex frowned, feeling a cold fear creep up his spine. A dull pain throbbed in his temples, and his thoughts were confused. Why didn't I remember anything about my past life when I was in this person's body? His voice trembled, although he tried to seem calm. The guide smiled lazily and leaned on his cane. His eyes, like two bottomless shadows, flickered in the semi-darkness. "Get used to it," he drawled. "It's always like this. When you open a new page, you'll feel a headache. But what will bother you even more is the emptiness. You won't remember anything about your past life. No faces, no names, no events. Each time, you'll be a completely new person with a new story, with someone else's memories and someone else's desires." Alex swallowed, trying to stop his hands from shaking. "And why am I here again?" He looked around. The darkness around him was moving like a living creature. "How long will I spend in the new body? And what's the point of all this?" "Do you like movies?" the guide suddenly asked, still calm, with a slight hint of curiosity. "What's the point of this question?" Alex narrowed his eyes. "Will my answer affect anything at all?" The guide nodded slowly. "Well, you want to know what kind of laptop this is and what's on the flash drive, right?" Alex felt his mouth go dry. He looked at the blinking cursor on the laptop screen, then back at the flash drive. "Let's say," he finally answered, but his voice no longer held the same aggression as before, only burning curiosity mixed with fear. The guide smiled wider, but his eyes never blinked. Alex, without wasting a second, opened the laptop with trembling fingers and inserted the very same flash drive. The screen flickered, loading the contents of the drive, and a single video file appeared before his eyes. He launched it. The recording was of his own apartment. Him, his best friend Nick, and his girlfriend. They were sitting at the table, laughing, discussing something, drinking. Suddenly, his girlfriend stood up, took a couple of steps into the kitchen, then, turning around, imperceptibly mixed something into his beer. Alex's heart sank. In the recording, he was smiling, not suspecting anything, and took a few big gulps. After a minute, his movements became slow. His eyes began to close. He tried to say something, but the words got stuck in his throat. His eyelids became heavy, and now he was already limply sinking onto the sofa. Nick and the girl exchanged glances. Without fuss, but quickly, they began downloading files from his laptop, copying something to the hard drive. Then they packed up and left without even looking back. Alex slammed the laptop shut with such force that the plastic cracked pitifully. His chest tightened, his fingers clenched into fists, his breathing ragged. He turned sharply to the guide, his eyes flashing. "Get me back there! I'll find them!" His voice was full of rage, trembling with tension. They are not people. They don't deserve to live after this." The guide looked at him with sadness. "Why did I come back here instead of waking up there?" Alex screamed, clenching his fists until his knuckles turned white. A pause, then a quiet but firm answer. "Alex, you are not sleeping in the video. You are dead." End of part 1.